You never thought that you would see this day, but it has arrived. The chicken dance has come to a liturgy in Germany. Um, I hate to show this video to you for multiple reasons, especially because the song is going to get stuck in your head as soon as I do, and you won't be able to get it out. Uh, but a patron sent me a video and asked me to comment on this, and I opened it up in horror to a video of chicken dancing during a liturgy, and I wanted to look more into it to find out what in the world is going on here, and what would possibly motivate somebody to do such a weird thing. And I think I have some answers. Not that any of them will excuse it, but I think that I found some answers here. And so what I want to do is review the video, try to understand psychologically why they thought this was a good idea. And after that, I want to take a look at a few things that the Vatican has recently said about liturgical abuses and the importance of us avoiding liturgical abuses, because this is certainly one. So let me share my screen and subject you to this horror. Please forgive me. And again, don't blame me for the fact that this thing is going to get stuck in your head. Blame the patron that asked me to comment on it. All right, here we go. Here's a little clip of it. There you go. So, I mean, you can kind of see the chicken dance going on there with the distribution of Holy Communion. So it really does look like it's taking place during a liturgy, not outside of the liturgy, but actually during Mass. You can see distribution here. You can see the priest here in the middle, and then a couple extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion. Extraordinary ministers who seem to be all too ordinary these days, while the chicken dance is going on in the sanctuary right here. And first thing I have to ask is, what's going on with this architecture? What would possibly inspire and motivate a person to build a church like this? I just honestly have to ask that question. Like, when you think about building a church, like, how could this possibly come to mind? Like, both for the architect and the builders and the people who built it. I mean, just all around, like, how does this happen? That's what I want to know. And also, I'm still trying to figure out this tabernacle over here. That I don't know what that is. It at first I thought it was a speaker, but then I noticed no, it's not. It's a tabernacle. What is going on with that? You got me. I don't know. I have more questions than I have answers today. Okay, be very candid with you. But okay, let's talk about this. From what I could tell, it looks like this is the church in which it was done. I don't know if this is an active parish or not. I've seen people online trying to debate this, whether or not it's an active parish. From what I can see, there doesn't really appear to be a whole lot of news sources in English that are reporting on this, for whatever that's worth. Not that the news outlets are very reliable anyways, but I've only really come across this on social media from your usuals. I couldn't really find a whole lot by way of news, although I did find something local to Germany where this took place, which we'll take a look at here in a moment, a Google Translate version of it. But it appears that this is the parish. Again, I saw some people saying it's not active or there's nothing there when you look it up on Google Maps. I don't know what's going on with all that. From what I could tell, the priest who presided over the Mass is this priest here, Joseph Tiefenbach, I guess is his name. I thought that was Okay, that's kind of interesting. Uh, Not sure exactly why he chose this, but I think we'll find some answers here in just a moment. Um, it looks like this is part of Bishop Ostaire's diocese when I looked into it, because I went over here to St. Stephen's Cathedral, where you can find this particular parish website, and it is Bishop Ostaire's um, cathedral in diocese. And I thought that was interesting because I actually did a show not long ago on him where he was standing firm against the German bishops and some of the things that they are pushing for in Germany. And he also was completely on board with the Vatican denying blessings for same-sex unions. And so, from what I could tell, I don't know a whole lot about him, but it looks like he's, in the right direction, opposing the shenanigans with some of the German bishops and standing up for traditional Christian morality. I don't know why this is taking place in his diocese, but I think I may have some answers. It, for better or worse, it actually appears like this is something that is done frequently in Germany. At least to a certain extent. I found this article, and again, it's originally in German, but this is a Google Translate. Roosdorf, which is where this took place, celebrates a fun family service. So I was trying to get some context behind it, and here you can see a photo of a bunch of kids with the priest, and so it's a family fun service. All right, let's try to see what all was the idea here. The ties between the parish and the Guardians are close. Parish Association Pastor Joseph Tiefenbach is a member of the Roosdorfer Carnival Society. An ex-chaplain, Conrad, was a clerical support of the founding committee back in 1967, and so a carnival service has been celebrated in Roosdorf for many, many years. So evidently this is something that they do often, because the priest is a member of a carnival society, and it looks like he puts these on for the kids so that they have a fun family event. The cheerful activity was launched in 1960 by the Catholic Rural Youth and then Roosdorf Parish Youth leader Franz Hutter and his wife Maria. Let's see. The avant-garde tent roof architectural style, that's one way to put it, of the church, consecrated in 1962, was architecturally reminiscent of the Circus Gaudium motto of this year's carnival season, while the well-filled rows of benches resembled the ring of the ring. I mean, again, this is Google Translate, right? So it doesn't seem to be much on dynamic equivalencies. Roosdorf's honorary citizen Gerd and district councilor Roswitha were among the highly esteemed members of the public. So it seems like this is something that they do annually for the community. Have you already laughed today is the next section here. Sing a happy song to the Lord. Pastor Joseph Tiefenbach quoted a Bible saying from the evangelist Mark in his humorous sermon words, which not only the dancers of the children's, but also the members of the boys and youth court took to heart. I wish I had a German on board who could just translate this for me, because this translation was pretty rough. I can glean a few things from it, but then again, I have more questions than I have answers with this one. The Young Guardian lectures illustrated the ephemeral happiness of life with bursting balloons. Okay, so I guess they had balloons because they want to depict the happiness of life. Finally, churchgoer Ted. All right. The two funny director clowns, Christina and Marion, asked for the most suitable priest costume, who was then allowed to play the main role as the Frog Prince. Evidently, there's a Frog Prince involved in this carnival theme celebration, and the priest was dressed as the Frog Prince, as we'll see here in a moment. All people who have their hearts in the right place, including children's choir director Karen accepted an invitation to the enjoyable church polonaise at the sacrifice, while Stephanie reinforced the circus orchestra on the clarinet. No wonder then that the church service attendees responded to the rhetorical children questions. Have you laughed today? With a joyful yes, with a triple Rustorf Gaudi Gaudi. Again, Google Translate. I think you need to work on your German. I don't know which is worse, the translation or the mass that we just saw. The church goers finally collectively applauded not only the successful guard performances, but also the spontaneous interjection of our pastor is great. Okay, so they seem to really love this. They seem to really be on board with it. So at least that answers the question whether or not this was just something that Father imposed on them reluctantly. No, it looks like they do this frequently and they enjoy it. On their service counter, the Caritas board of the Roosdorf Parish Association finally served tasty carnival donuts. I mean, hey, you can't beat donuts with, depending on your taste, champagne or seltzer directly in front of the confessional. So donuts and champagne? I don't know. I'm confused. The voluntary donations requested for this purpose will be donated by Caritas International to those in need who cannot even dream of the joys of the carnival. Okay, so here's a picture. Clearly, it's the same group that we just saw here because, I mean, obviously you got this person, and then you can see the person over here with the hat at the organ. So it appears to be the same. Here's the lady in the hat and the other person in the hat. So appears to again be the same thing. And here's the priest dressed in a frog thing for the carnival. I mean, look, honestly, like, okay, if the chicken dance and frog themed carnivals and stuff makes the kids happy, just do it outside of liturgy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, I guess, having like, personally, I have no interest in attending such a thing, but I guess if kids find this fun and this is a good, nice, healthy way for fellow families to have fun, all right, just do that outside of church. Just do it outside of the liturgy. That's my sincere recommendation here. Like, okay, keep these fun practices. If the chicken dance makes the kids happy, keep the chicken dance. All right, go for it. Just do it outside of the church, and do it outside of liturgy. And then how about we have a liturgy, a respectful service, and then we meet in the parish hall for the chicken dance and the carnival festival. Like, what? I just don't understand why this is done in the context of the liturgy. I suspect that, again, the intention and the idea here is to bring families together, make children part of the community, make the children happy, bring a smile to their face. Like, I guess the intentions are good, but how in the world does that translate into bringing this into the liturgy? It's kind of like your clown masses, although I've never seen a clown mass before. As I understand it, the intention behind that was there was like a group of nuns, a community of nuns, or I think they were nuns. This particular community was seeing a lot of death every single day. They were in really, really horrible conditions. So they needed something to bring them a little bit of peace and happiness. And they thought a clown mass involving clowns in the liturgy would somehow do that. Okay, well, look, I understand if you're seeing death everywhere, you want a little bit of levity. I totally get that. That, however, doesn't translate into let's bring clowns to mass. Just, okay, if somehow clowns makes you happy, which I can't relate to any of this. Okay, I just cannot relate to chicken dancing or clowns. Okay, it's just not there for me. But if somehow that brought a smile to my face, which it doesn't, but if it did, fine, just do it outside of the liturgy. There's no reason to bring this into the mass. Just have your clown, have your carnivals, have your frog stuff, have your chicken stuff. Just have it in the parish hall. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand. Just leave it out of the liturgy is what I'm saying. Okay. So, okay, we could maybe give them an A for intention and an F for execution. um let's go to where the Vatican corrects this kind of stuff and says that you should not be doing it. Um, interestingly enough, Pope Francis, as late as his document Traditionis Custodes, um, he himself decries these kinds of liturgical abuses. He says, at the same time, I'm saddened by abuses in the celebration of the liturgy on all sides. In common with Benedict XVI, I deplore the fact that in many places the prescriptions of the new missal are not observed in celebration. I'll say, when you bring in chicken dancing, I would certainly say that is not observing the prescriptions of the new missal, to say the least. But indeed come to be interpreted as an authorization for or even requirement of creativity, which leads to almost unbearable distortions. Yeah. Just kind of like what we observe here. That would seem pretty descriptive of what we're observing here. Unbearable conditions. Again, I give them a pat on the back for intentions, but I also give them an F for execution. Do your chicken dance in the parish hall after Mass. Nothing wrong with that. I won't be in attendance for the chicken dance. But if that is what you need as a community, go for it. Just keep it out of the liturgy. It's as simple as that. I'm surprised this has to be said, but evidently it is. Here, there's another document that actually just came out last month from the Vatican decrying liturgical abuses. And notice what it says about them here. While in other areas of the church's pastoral action, there is ample space for creativity, such inventiveness in the context of the celebration of the sacraments, that would include the Mass, is rather transformed into a manipulative will and therefore cannot be invoked. In other words, some people, under the guise of creativity, are imposing their manipulative will on the Mass when they engage in liturgical abuses. If you want to be creative, that's fine. Be creative. Just be creative outside of the liturgy. But to impose that creativity on the liturgy is not to be creative. It's to be manipulative. And it can result in sacrilege, which I would say that's what happened here. Sacrilege. That's what happens with a chicken dance Mass. Regardless of intentions, still sacrilege. It's not fitting. It's not appropriate. It brings a very inappropriate spirit to a solemn liturgy. That's the problem. This is something that we do that is sacred. You don't make it profane. If, again, you want to have your time of levity, you want to have your fun, you want to bring a smile to the face, just do it in the parish hall after the liturgy. Look at this from Redemptionis Sacramentum from the Vatican. Here it describes liturgical abuse as this. Certainly, the liturgical reform inaugurated by the Second Vatican Council has greatly contributed to a more conscious, active, and fruitful participation in the holy sacrifice of the altar and on the part of the faithful. So there are some good things that have come, but here's some bad things. Even so, shadows are not lacking. In this regard, it is not possible to be silent about the abuses, even quite grave ones, against the nature of the liturgy and the sacraments, as well as the tradition and the authority of the church, which in our day not infrequently plague liturgical celebrations in one ecclesial environment or another. Absolutely. In some places, the perpetration of liturgical abuses has become almost habitual, a fact which obviously cannot be allowed and must cease. Well, I would certainly say, especially if they're doing this annually in Germany, that needs to stop. And Bishop Oster, as the moderator of the liturgy in his diocese, needs to put an end to this. He just needs to say, hey guys, you want to do your carnival stuff? You want to do your chicken dance stuff? Your community finds that meaningful? Great. I support that. Just do it outside of the liturgy. Do it outside of the liturgy and not in the sanctuary. Don't profane that which is sacred. This is just Catholicism 101. And the bishop needs to do that. As the moderator of the liturgy, it ultimately falls on him. And if he doesn't do that, well, he doesn't have a whole lot of leg to stand on in criticizing the German bishops. It continues, the observance of the norms published by the authority of the church requires conformity of thought and of word, of external action, and of the application of the heart. A merely external observation of norms would obviously be contrary to the nature of the sacred liturgy, in which Christ himself wishes to gather his church so that together with himself she will be one body and one spirit. What is it saying? It's saying we need to follow the rubrics. Don't deviate from them. But simply following the rubrics is not enough. It needs to be meaningful. It can't just be external observation of the rubrics. It's a both and. Don't depart from the rubrics, but sure, don't make the rubrics just a dead letter. For this reason, external observation or external action must be illuminated by faith and charity, which unite us with Christ and with one another, and engender love for the poor and abandoned. The liturgical words and rites, moreover, are a faithful expression, matured over the centuries of the understanding of Christ, and they teach us to think as he himself does. By conforming our minds to these words, we raise our hearts to the Lord. All that is said in the instruction is directed towards such a conformity of our own understanding with that of Christ, as expressed in the words and the rites of the liturgy. For abuses contribute to the obscuring of the Catholic faith and doctrine concerning this wonderful sacrament. That's what happens when you bring a chicken dance to the Mass. You're obscuring the wonderful sacrament. Thus, they also hinder the faithful from reliving in a certain way the experience of the two disciples of Emmaus, and their eyes were opened and they recognized him. For in the presence of God's power and divinity and the splendor of his goodness made manifest, especially in the sacrament of the Eucharist, it is fitting that all the faithful should have and put into practice that power of acknowledging God's majesty that they have received through the saving passion of the only begotten Son. Now, frankly, when you have the chicken dance going on, you're not going to think of God's majesty. Common sense, right? You're going to think of God as common, God as profane, not God as glorious, not as his majesty. You're going to think of profane, common, overly familiar. Now, yes, God does come to us, and he is intimate and he is close, but he is also glorious and majestic. And we have to keep that in mind. And all throughout the Old Testament, there's an emphasis on making the distinction between that which is holy and that which is profane. And when we bring chicken dances to the Mass, we're not making that appropriate distinction. And when we bring the chicken dance to the sanctuary, we're not making that appropriate distinction. And when we do it during the administration of the Eucharist, we're not making that distinction, that which we receive is holy and God is glorious. You're not going to think of God that way when you're dancing to the chicken dance too. Common sense. Have your chicken dance outside of the liturgy, outside of the sanctuary. Keep that which is holy, holy, and that which is profane, profane. If you want your profane and secular chicken dance, do it in a profane place. The hall, a person's home, a dance hall. I don't know, wherever people do the chicken dance. I don't know. Wherever these things are normally done, do it there. But keep that which is holy, holy. It continues. Let me share my screen. Not infrequently, abuses are rooted in a false understanding of liberty. Yes. Yet God has not granted us in Christ an illusory liberty by which we may do what we wish, but a liberty by which we may do that which is fitting and right. It is fitting, or I should say, is it fitting to do a chicken dance during the liturgy? No. No. Common sense says no. This is true not only of precepts coming directly from God, but also of laws promulgated by the church. You have to follow them with appropriate regard for the nature of each norm. For this reason, all should conform to the ordinances set forth by legitimate ecclesiastical authority. It is therefore to be noted with great sadness that ecumenical initiatives, which are well intentioned, nevertheless indulge at times in Eucharistic practices contrary to the discipline by which the church expresses her faith. Yet the Eucharist is too great a gift to tolerate ambiguity or depreciation. When you do a chicken dance during the reception of Holy Communion, that's called depreciation of the sacrament. It is therefore necessary that some things be corrected, such as by the moderator of the diocese, which is Bishop Oster, or more clearly delineated so that in this respect as well, the Eucharist will continue to shine forth in all its radiant mystery. Finally, abuses are often based on ignorance, and that they involve a rejection of those elements whose deeper meaning is not understood and whose antiquity is not recognized. I'll say, you know what happens when you have this? I'll tell you what happens. What happens is that Father and the rest of the people who are in charge of organizing here do not understand what they are receiving in the Eucharist and what takes place at the Mass. They don't. And if they do, to their shame, they do this then. And if they don't, well, that's also to their shame. But it's often because they don't know what they are actually receiving. The body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord. If you really believe that, I'm sorry, it's not going to cross your mind to involve the chicken dance during the Mass. It's just not. It's not. So you do have to really wonder, look, do you even really believe this stuff? It continues. For the liturgical prayers, orations, and songs are pervaded by the inspiration and impulse of the sacred scriptures themselves, and it is from these that the actions and signs receive their meaning. As for the visible signs, which the sacred liturgy uses in order to signify the invisible divine realities, they have been chosen by Christ or by the church, and the church hasn't chosen to introduce the chicken dance during the liturgy. Finally, the structures and forms of the sacred celebrations according to each of the rites of both East and West are in harmony with the practice of the universal church, also as regards practices received universally from apostolic and unbroken tradition, which it is the church's task to transmit faithfully and carefully to future generations. All these things are wisely safeguarded and protected by the liturgical norms. And if the norms are not being followed, then we are not safeguarding the liturgy and protecting it. And we're not safeguarding and faithfully handing down what has been given to us. Again, that's why I think the moderator of the liturgy here, again, Bishop Oster, needs to step in and say, hey guys, love the fact that you want to get children active with the church. Love the fact you want to bring a smile to people's face. Great. Love the fact that you want to experience joy. Great. But this is not the way to do it. You can have this stuff, carnivals, carnival themes, frog stuff, whatever. It brings a smile to you. It's great. Gets the kids more interested in church. Great. Do it outside of the liturgy. Do it outside of the sanctuary. That's what the bishop needs to do. He needs to step in. And if he doesn't, well, it's ultimately on him. Not so much on the priest, on the bishop at that point. This is where we need bishops to start doing their job. Hopefully he'll do it. And if he doesn't, again, as I said, you know what? He can't really criticize the German bishops for their abuses, right? When you're a German bishop tolerating abuses in your own diocese, you can't criticize other German bishops for tolerating abuses in their diocese. Right? Common sense. Hopefully he'll do the right thing. Anyways, hit the like button and the subscribe button if you found this helpful. And again, I apologize that right now you have stuck in your mind, stuck in your head, the chicken dance song. And I know it's probably going to be there all week. Please, again, don't blame me. Blame the patron who asked me to review this. No, I'm joking. Again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and of course, check me out at patreon.com/reason and theology if you want to support the show and get access to extra content. And shout out to the patron who sent this to me. Thank you for the video recommendation. Hope you found this helpful. All right. See you later. Hey, friends, do you want others to discover why the Catholic Church is the church that Jesus established? And do you want to help people make sense of all the confusion in the Catholic Church today? Help contribute to this mission by supporting Reason and Theology at patreon.com/reason and theology. By doing so, you'll also get access to exclusive content for patrons only. Also, if you want to deepen your faith, there are free ebooks and even courses that you can sign up for by visiting reason.podia.com. Have you ever heard someone say that Pope Francis denied the existence of hell, or Pope Francis worshipped an idol in the Vatican gardens? There are many claims that have been made about Pope Francis for over a decade, and many of them are inaccurate. I've set the record straight in my free ebook called Top 10 Lies About Pope Francis Exposed. Get your free copy today by visiting reason.podia.com.